My stepson said I had no right to interfere in their lives. I ripped my signature off the papers, stopped the payments, and closed the family account. Now they're getting a taste of reality. Subscribe to the channel and share your stories in the comments. And now let's get started. My name's Mark. I'm 45. I have 2 kids from my first marriage, Amy and Connor, 11 and 13. Their mother and I split 7 years ago, but we stayed civil. Maybe because we both understood that the children came first. When Amy visits, she asks if I've been eating. She paints little things in watercolor and tapes them to the fridge. When Connor's here, he brings his chessboard and calls me champ. When he wins, which is often. With them, there's peace, quiet connection, respect that doesn't need to be taught or demanded. It's just there, effortless, honest, intact. But with Dylan is Laura's son. He's 18 now. We met when he was 12, when Laura and I first started seeing each other. We moved in together the following year, and I married her shortly after. I thought, maybe foolishly, that love could be extended, reshaped. That fatherhood wasn't about blood, but about presence, about staying, about standing in the doorway when someone else runs. So I stood. I stood through broken curfews and police calls, through slammed doors and eye rolls, through the first time he told me to shut up, and Laura told me he was just expressing himself. I stood through every "you're not my dad," said in 10,000 quiet ways. Never directly, not until later, not until the blade finally came clean through. 6 years I stood. Through birthdays Tom never came to, through hospital visits, through Laura's long, breathless excuses about why Dylan needed space, about how boys his age were just struggling to find themselves. I worked full-time, paid for most of the bills, and picked up the rest. When Dylan cracked his phone, it was me who paid the deductible. When he needed a laptop for school, it was me who opened another credit card. When the car battery died, it was my Saturday, my tools, my hands under the hood. Tom, his biological father, showed up once or twice a year, loud, grinning, always with some expensive gadget in hand, snapping selfies and throwing out phrases like champ and proud of you. Then gone again, like a holiday, like a dream, but louder. Dylan idolized him for it. He kept a framed photo of them in his bedroom. One of those yearly visits, I think they were at a baseball game. Tom had one arm draped around his shoulder, the other holding a beer, both grinning like it had always been good. I remember the first time I saw that photo. I was cleaning his room, reorganizing shelves because he'd left them in chaos. I stopped in front of that frame like it was a gravestone. I picked it up, held it, tried to feel nothing, failed. I put it back exactly how I found it. That was 4 years ago. Since then, not much changed. Tom kept disappearing. Dylan kept waiting. I kept paying. And Laura kept asking me, softly, late at night, not to push too hard. "He'll come around," she said. "You're good to him. He sees it." But I don't think he ever did. There's a particular kind of erosion that happens in silence. You don't see it until the foundation shifts, until the floor caves under you. It was Sunday morning, cold light coming through the kitchen windows. I had woken early and made breakfast like I always did: eggs, pancakes, sausage, toast. I try to keep rituals. I believe in them. They hold things together when nothing else does. Laura was sipping her coffee, still in her robe, scrolling her phone. Dylan came in late, bedhead, hoodie, headphones slung around his neck. He sat down and muttered a greeting, barely audible. I poured him juice. He didn't say thank you. Just another morning. Until it wasn't. We were talking about college. I had been the one scheduling tours, filling out FAFSA, contacting admissions offices when he missed deadlines. Laura helped, but the financials, the legwork, that was mine. Always mine. "Did you finish the housing form?" I asked him. My tone wasn't sharp. It wasn't even tired. Just a question. A normal question. He didn't answer right away. Just kept tapping something on his phone. "Dylan?" I said again. "The housing app. You need to submit it this week or you might not get a spot." That's when he looked up. No blink. No expression. Just eyes, flat and heavy with something old. You have no right to interfere in my life. 7 words. They didn't come out hot. They weren't shouted or spat. That would have been easier. Rage you can work with. Rage at least means heat. No, this was colder than that. Dismissive. Calculated. A statement made after years of buildup. And he made sure to say it with Laura in the room. He didn't even flinch. And she? She stared at her mug, stirred it, took a slow sip, like nothing happened, like those words hadn't just detonated the last bridge I had left. I sat there, fork halfway to my mouth, the smell of syrup and sausage suddenly nauseating, the sound of the refrigerator humming in the background, the tick of the wall clock. "I'm sorry," I said. He didn't repeat it, just looked back down at his phone, like I wasn't there. I waited for Laura to say something. Anything. She didn't. Maybe she was afraid. Maybe she was tired. Or maybe, and this is the thought that's hardest to admit, maybe she agreed with him. I pushed my plate away. The food had gone cold. I stood up, walked out. No raised voice. No slamming doors. But something in me broke. Quietly, like glass behind drywall. That sentence didn't just hurt. Clarified. Like someone wiping a dirty mirror. You have no right to interfere. After 6 years of raising a boy who wasn't mine, paying for his life, standing in the shadows while another man got the spotlight, I had no right, not a say, not a vote, not even a place at the table I built. I went to my office, closed the door, sat down at my desk. The laptop was already open. I'd been managing taxes the day before. I stared at the screen for a while, fingers still, heart numb. Then I started clicking. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break anything. That morning, I walked out of the kitchen like I was leaving a meeting that had ended without resolution. I didn't slam a door. I didn't yell. I didn't argue with Laura or demand she explain his words. I didn't need to. He'd made himself clear. And I heard him. Every syllable. Every unblinking syllable. You have no right to interfere in my life. It echoed down the hallway. It followed me into my office like a shadow that knew my name. I sat down at my desk, opened the laptop, and stared at the tabs already waiting: college login portals, financial aid dashboards, our joint bank account, the digital map of a life I had carried quietly for years. Not mine, theirs. I sat there for 10, maybe 15 minutes, not moving. I wasn't shocked. That would imply surprise. I wasn't surprised. I was finished. Finished pretending I didn't see what had been true for years. Finished calling it love when what I was really offering was servitude. Finished mistaking endurance for family. I started with the bank. Laura and I had opened a shared account when we got married. It made sense then. Groceries, bills, car maintenance, Dylan's phone bill, Dylan's college fund, Dylan's dentist, Dylan's orthodontist, Dylan's everything. I pulled up the account, transferred my half of the balance into a private account I'd kept open in my name, a safety net I hadn't touched since before we married. Then I began untangling my name from theirs. First the credit cards, the joint one Laura used for household expenses and the second one Dylan had for emergencies, the one I paid off every month without a thank you. I opened the settings, removed myself, disabled automatic payments, canceled future transfers. Next came the insurance. Auto, health, dental. Dylan was listed as a dependent. Not anymore. I called the agent. Removed him. Took exactly 6 minutes. The car? Leased in my name. Paid from my account. I logged into the leasing company's site. Set the end-of-lease notification. Called to confirm they'd send a return package. Told them the driver, Dylan, would no longer be using the vehicle. I'd park it on the street, keys in the mailbox. Phone? Family plan. I was the primary. 5 lines. Mine, Laura's, Dylan's, plus the old emergency line that no one used but I paid for anyway. Kept mine. Disconnected the rest. Gas card gone. Streaming services, canceled. Wi-Fi? That one made me pause. There's something about cutting off the internet in a house that feels like removing its lungs. But lungs need breath. And I was tired of breathing for everyone else. I logged into the provider's portal. Downgraded to a 1-person plan. Canceled the modem rental. By the time I was done, 2 hours had passed. I'd called 6 companies, filled out 17 forms, deleted my name from every contract that kept this family warm, insured, mobile, and entertained. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for 6 years. Last came the college portal. Dylan's, not mine. I'd helped him register. I knew his login. I knew everything, how many credits he had, what his GPA was, how much of his housing deposit I had already paid. He hadn't submitted the housing form yet. The one I reminded him about over pancakes, the one that started this. I closed the portal. Not my job anymore. Then I opened my texts and wrote one message. To Laura. Dylan's an adult. Let him handle life without interference. That was it. I didn't wait for a reply. I left the office, passed her in the hallway. She looked up from her phone, smiled faintly. Everything okay? She asked. I nodded. Everything's fine. She didn't press. She never did. That night was quiet. Dylan didn't mention the breakfast conversation. Laura didn't ask about money. We ate leftovers. The dishwasher hummed. Everyone moved through the evening like we were still inside the life they assumed I'd keep holding up. But the foundation had shifted. No one noticed. Not yet. The next morning it started. I was in the garage when my phone buzzed. Dylan. I didn't answer. The call rang out. Then came the texts. My card isn't working. Tried to get gas. Declined. Is the account frozen? Can you check? I didn't reply right away. I finished what I was doing, reorganizing the toolbox, something I'd been meaning to do for months. When I finally texted back, I wrote 4 words. I'm not interfering anymore. That was it. No explanation. No apology. No emojis. An hour later, Laura called. Mark, what's going on? Dylan said his card got declined. He's stuck 2 hours from campus without gas. He said you shut it off? I kept my tone even. He said I had no right to interfere. I'm honoring that. Her voice rose. He didn't mean it like that. You know how teenagers are. They say things they don't. No, Laura, I interrupted. He meant it. He's 18. He meant it. And I believe him. She went quiet. I've removed myself from the joint accounts. I added. The credit cards. The insurance. The phone plan. Everything. It's all yours now. His now. You can't just Mark, you can't do this. He needs support. He's starting college. He has support, I said. He has a father. Maybe it's time Tom started paying for his son. Another pause. Then the anger came. You're being cruel. This is punishment. He's just a kid. He's a man when he wants autonomy, but a child when the bills come due? You're overreacting. No, Laura, I said. I've been underreacting for 6 years. I've stayed quiet. I've swallowed disrespect in this house because I thought it would pass. But it didn't pass. It hardened. It became culture. And now you're reaping what you allowed. I didn't allow anything, she snapped. Yes, you did. Every time he dismissed me and you said nothing. Every time he mocked my rules and you shrugged. Every time I stood between him and collapse, and you looked away. Silence. I could hear her breathing on the line. I finished it simply. If I'm not part of his life, I won't fund it. Let his father interfere for once. I ended the call. The rest of the day passed in a strange calm. No more texts. No more calls. The kind of silence that comes after you hang up on the world. That night, I slept better than I had in months. In the morning, the silence shifted. Not quiet, empty. The kind of quiet that lets you hear what was never said. 3 days. That's how long it took for the first real collapse. 3 days after I removed myself from the machinery of the household, the silence cracked. Not with an apology, not with remorse, but with desperation. The kind that only money, or the sudden loss of it, can summon. Dylan's phone was the first to go. Disconnected. I knew the timeline. The billing cycle ended on the 15th. My plan. My name. My payment. Without me, the carrier didn't wait. He texted me from a friend's number. My phone's dead. Did something happen with the plan? I didn't reply. An hour later, he tried calling from Laura's phone. I let it ring. I let the silence answer him. Then the insurance lapsed. He was still listed under the policy auto and medical, but only while I was the one holding the pen. When my name came off, the premiums doubled. Laura didn't see the increase right away. Not until the cancellation email arrived. I forwarded it to her without a word. An hour later, she stormed into my office, waving her phone. His insurance was canceled? Mark, what the hell are you doing? I'm not doing anything, I said calmly. I stopped doing. There's a difference. He needs coverage. He drives. Then either you or Tom can pay for it. This isn't how families work, she snapped. I met her eyes steady. No, this is exactly how families work. Or should. With respect. With recognition. With effort on all sides. You want to talk about families? Let's talk. For 6 years, I fed a boy who never looked me in the eye. I paid for his health, his school, his clothes, his comfort. And in return, I was treated like a parasite. A nuisance. She looked away. I pressed on. He told me, in your presence, that I had no right to interfere in his life. And you said nothing. So now I'm taking that seriously. You're punishing him. No, I said. I'm honoring his words. That night, the house felt heavier. Dylan stayed in his room. Laura didn't cook. I made myself a sandwich, ate it alone at the counter. The air was thick. Not with conversation, but with the realization of what had been lost. Not just money, not just comfort, but the illusion that I would always be there, no matter how I was treated. That illusion was dead now. A week passed. Dylan came home on foot. I heard the screen door creak open just before sunset. No car, no phone, just him. Slumped shoulders, backpack dragging, eyes sunken from whatever long walk he'd taken. He stood in the doorway for a long time, as if the threshold had become a border. Laura rushed to meet him. I stayed seated at the dining table, reading. He didn't look at her. He looked at me. I didn't mean what I said, he mumbled. I was angry. I didn't think you'd actually cut me off. I closed the book, looked at him fully. You said I had no right to interfere in your life, I said. I'm just doing what you asked. His mouth twitched. I didn't mean it like that. No, I said. You meant it exactly like that, and I believed you. He stepped into the room, tentative. His voice wavered. I just want things to go back to how they were. I leaned back in my chair. Let me ask you something, Dylan. When things were how they were, did you ever once thank me? For the car? The phone? The tuition payments? The dentist visits? The groceries? The rent? The clothes? The 1,000 little things that kept your life from collapsing? He didn't answer. You didn't, I said. Because you didn't see me. Not really. You saw a wallet. A mechanic. A filler for the man who only shows up when there's a camera. I was a kid, he said quietly. You're 18, I replied. And when a man draws a line, another man believes him. I said it in anger, he tried again. I was just. You said it in truth, I said. And I'm done begging to be included in a life that doesn't want me. He fell quiet. Behind him, Laura stood frozen, unsure whether to defend him or stay silent. That was always her role, the undecided juror. Eventually, Dylan turned and walked upstairs without another word. The conversation was over, or maybe it had never really started. The next day, I watched Laura on the phone, her voice low, tense. I knew who she was calling. Tom. She was trying to fix the damage, trying to outsource the cost, trying to reach the man whose blood gave Dylan permission to disrespect me, and whose absence forced me to shoulder the load. She hung up after 10 minutes. Her face told me everything. He said he can't pay, she said. I nodded. He said he thought I was handling it, that it wasn't his job. Welcome to my world, I said. She sat down across from me. Her voice was small. What are we supposed to do? I looked at her, the woman I married, the mother of the boy who had told me I didn't belong. You have a choice, I said. You can keep trying to salvage the comfort Dylan had while refusing to correct his behavior, or you can let him learn. Let him carry some of this. Let him feel the weight of the things I carried without thanks. That's not fair, she whispered. He's only just becoming an adult. No, I said. What's not fair is being used as an ATM and then told I'm not part of the family. She didn't reply. 3 days later, Dylan found a job. Minimum wage, late shifts, fast food. He started walking home in the dark, feet dragging, shirt stained. The arrogance faded. The silence shifted. He began cooking for himself, asking Laura for rides, asking her for money she didn't have. Tom stopped answering his calls entirely. I watched it unfold from the living room, quiet, uninterested, detached, not out of cruelty, but because cruelty had already been dealt. I was just stepping out of its way. Laura stopped talking much. She moved like a woman standing in the aftermath of a storm she didn't prepare for, but helped build. The house grew quieter. Not better, just quieter. One night, Dylan asked if we could talk. I said no. Not yet, I told him. You're still learning. He didn't argue. He nodded, slowly, and walked away. That was the first time I saw something in his eyes that looked like understanding. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. It wasn't even regret. It was the realization that I had been real, that I had been there, that my absence was not an act of vengeance, it was justice. And justice doesn't apologize. Justice waits. Here is the final part, part 4. The lesson brought to a close at your requested 8,000 character length. It resolves the moral arc with clarity, without offering comfort or reconciliation. The stepfather doesn't ask for redemption. He asks only to be heard. Let me know if you'd like a different tone or if we should explore another story next. 4. The lesson ***. 2 months passed. Dylan worked 6 days a week, mostly closing shifts. I'd hear him come in after midnight. Keys jingling, shoes scraping the tile, backpack thudding to the floor. He never slammed the door anymore. He'd shuffle into the kitchen for leftovers, eat standing up. No music, no calls. His phone was basic now, one of those prepaid models with no data. He used to mock people with phones like that. Now he held his in silence. He lost weight, not drastically, but enough to notice. His shoulders rounded more. His posture changed. He wore the same 3 shirts on rotation, and the once white sneakers I bought him 2 birthdays ago had gone gray with overuse. The car sat in the driveway with a dead battery. He never asked to fix it. Tom had vanished entirely, stopped answering texts, then calls, then messages altogether. Laura stopped defending him after the 3rd week. She didn't announce it. She just stopped saying, **, he's busy. **, he's got his own problems. **. We all knew the truth. Tom had shown up just long enough to plant the idea that I wasn't needed, and disappeared the second that idea carried weight. I stopped waiting for someone to admit it. I watched Dylan learn. He learned about taxes, about late buses, about sore feet and shift managers who didn't care if you had homework. He learned that insurance costs more when you're 18 and alone, that ramen tastes worse when you bought it yourself, that rent doesn't care who your real dad is. He never once asked me to step back in. Not outright, but I saw it. The pauses in the hallway. The way he lingered near me when I read on the couch. The way he started washing his own dishes, wiping the counter after himself. Small things. Things I used to do while he scrolled past me like I was a ghost in his mother's house. Laura changed too. She became quieter, less defensive. I don't know if it was guilt or fatigue or both, but she started treating me like a partner again. Asking before spending. Offering to cook. Sitting beside me on the couch instead of across the room. But I didn't forget. It's strange, isn't it? How you can share a bed with someone who watched you be erased and said nothing. The silence between us was no longer full of tension. It was full of memory, of choices made, of words not spoken when they were needed most. Some nights, I'd wake up and find her staring at the ceiling. I never asked what she was thinking. She never offered. Dylan got his first paycheck in the second week of October. He cashed it at a grocery store kiosk. I watched from the upstairs window as he held the slip of money like it might disappear. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just stood there, alone, in the glow of the parking lot lights. He looked like someone who had just realized how expensive life really is. One night, after dinner, just me and Laura at the table, he came into the kitchen. Didn't say anything. Just took a seat carefully. Waited. I kept eating. Finally, he cleared his throat. "I paid the phone bill," he said. I nodded. "Good. I got insurance too. Just the basic plan." "Smart." He paused. Then, softer, "I'm still behind on housing." I looked at him. Waited. "I'm figuring it out," he added quickly. I wanted you to know. I'm not asking for anything." I set my fork down. Met his eyes. "I know." That was all I said. That was all I needed to say. He looked relieved. And also ashamed. Like he'd been waiting for me to explode. To say I told you so. But I didn't. Because this wasn't about revenge. It never was. This was about gravity. About consequences. And he was finally living in them. That night, Laura came to bed and whispered, "Thank you." I didn't reply. Because forgiveness isn't owed just because someone finally says the right words. It's earned. Over time. In behavior, not apology. 2 more weeks passed. Dylan started budgeting. I heard him on the phone with customer service asking about fees. He printed out his class schedule and pinned it to the fridge. Not for us, for himself. His laundry no longer sat in the hallway. He brought home groceries once. A small bag, mostly rice and beans, but still. He didn't ask for help. And I didn't offer. Because this was the help. The silence. The absence. The withholding. It wasn't punishment. It was education. The only kind he ever listened to. By November, the house felt different. Not healed. Just clearer. Dylan and I didn't have long talks. We didn't hug. There was no dramatic turning point. But one evening, he passed me in the hall and said, "Good night, Mark." Mark. Not dude. Not nothing. Not him. Not dad, no. But something. A name. A recognition. And in that tiny word, there was more apology than any letter could hold. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Laura reached for my hand. Held it. Neither of us spoke. But I knew what she wanted to ask. Are we okay now? And maybe, in time, we would be. But that answer doesn't come quick. Not after years of slow erosion. Because love can survive many things. But disrespect rots it from the root. And when the roots go bad, it takes a long time to grow anything again. I haven't restarted the payments. I haven't put my name back on the insurance, the car, the tuition. Dylan still works late. Still juggles classes with shifts. Still shows up tired. But he shows up. And that matters more than any apology. Because if I was never truly a father to him in name, I was one in form. And now, finally, he's beginning to understand what that cost me. Responsibility isn't owed. It's earned. And for the first time, he's paying the bill. And me? I learned something too. I learned that a man who gives everything without boundary teaches others not to value him, but to use him. I learned that silence, while painful, sometimes teaches more than words ever could. And I learned that stepping back isn't always abandonment. Sometimes it's the only way to let others step forward. So here's the truth. They said I wasn't part of their life. I believed them, and when I left, the floor collapsed. Not because I took revenge, but because I had been the floor all along. So now I'll ask you, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to pull back? To stop funding contempt? To teach by absence what love and money could no longer explain? Was I cruel? Or was I finally honest? You tell me.